Huh? What? So look at this. We're gonna really double down, and you can really mess with the economy. This stuff happens all the time. So we take the supply of Xboxes, we lower it. We know when something becomes more rare, it becomes more valuable, the price goes up. And let's just ignore the date, because this is just in theory. Let's say we lower the supply and the price is going to go up. Kind of like the example I gave you earlier, where all the stores were out of Xboxes and the only way you could get one was off some dude on eBay, and that dude totally jacked the price up, but he was the only guy to get it from. And the supply was low, so the price was high. Well, we got another problem. What if at the same time we increase the supply of money, and so that the money's price goes down? Yikes. So we do this, no more Xboxes, jacks the price up. And we also, it could be like $1,000 for an Xbox, because we've also made the actual money worth less. Yikes. And we see this with shoes too. Maybe shoes is a better example. A lot of times, this is supposedly on Google Images, they said this was one of a kind. I don't know. Obviously, it's an Air Jordan. I guess it's important. I guess it's very rare. You would have to tell me. And normally, it's very easy for students just to say no and act like teachers don't know anything. That's fine. You're probably going to tell me, no, I had a pair of those, got rid of them. They're all right. They're not that rare, Mr. Dietrich. What you really look for, whatever. I'm fine. Okay, that's cool. Cool story. I'm sorry that I did not pick the right pair of shoes. But by the way, what I'm trying to tell you is the supply of these is really low. The supply of money is really high. That makes these very, very expensive. Supply of money goes up. Price of those goes down. Supply of shoes goes down. The value of them goes up. So the price tag skyrockets. It's a double whammy. This stuff happens. Just interesting things that you will experience in your life when we're talking about inflation. And when this is the case, when you've got this double whammy where supply of money goes up, price of that money actually goes down, the supply of the shoes goes down, and the price of the shoes goes up, what we happen is a scenario where if you go to Foot Locker, you have to roll in with a barrel of money. It takes a lot more money to buy a pair of shoes. You're probably looking at that and saying, that's awesome, a barrel full of money. No. Are you listening to me? This is not good. This is bad. Because the money is not worth anything. It's not a lot of money because each dollar is not worth what it used to be. Technically, the dollar is probably worth 10 cents. The dollar is a dime. The dollar is a dime. What you used to be able to go to Foot Locker and you just pull out your wallet and give a couple bucks, maybe $100 bill or a couple bills. Now, the money that is required to buy that rare pair of shoes with your inflated fiat currency. Remember when we said fiat before? Let it become. The money is just money because we said it's money. It's not attached to gold or anything. But because there's so much money, its actual value has gone down. And because that item you're buying is so rare, it also costs more money. And so instead of just going in and getting the money out of your wallet, you now have to literally, to have enough money to buy that shoe, you need a wheelbarrow. And this is not made up. This is real. This has happened in economies around the world where the governments of those economies printed too much money. The governments of those economies did not do a good job at regulating how much money. That's real, folks. Another example, this is Germany during the Great Depression where their money, they printed too much of it. This is a dude going to the store. It's not pulling out my wallet to buy the groceries. Got to go buy some hamburger. All right, well, throw it in the back of the pickup truck. Not the hamburger. We're talking about the dollar bills that we are going to need to pay for this. Again, here's a picture in color, which means this is happening today. This is happening today. Oh, I'm just going to go to the store real quick. Oh, let me grab all the money I need. The exchange rate, $25 million in Zimbabwe is equal to $1. So that $1 in your pocket, one single bill, 25 million. Man, 25 million. No, $25 million is not good when the dollars are worth nothing. Oh, $100 trillion. It's not worth anything. Just because it has this big number, that does not mean it's worth anything. There's too much of it. That's why they have these ridiculous totals. This is inflation out of control. We've never experienced runaway inflation like this, but it has happened in many other countries where the economies have said, all right, well, we want people to buy things and we want to stimulate the economy, so we got to make sure people have money. And unfortunately, in those economies, in those nations, the government gets way too out of hand and prints way too much money. Can't do that. So again, supply of money goes up, the value of that money goes down. If the supply goes down, though, it actually can buy more, which is pretty good. But there's a reason why you don't want to do that. You really need to find a balance. It is okay to print a lot of money as long as it's slow and steady. And a little bit of inflation every single year is not going to kill the economy. In theory, one of the problems we talk about is, so when this happens, when the supply of money goes up and its actual value goes down, prices of the goods go up, right? What you used to buy, you got to pay more. Well, typically your wages should go up with it. You should get paid more too. So that's not so bad, but that usually doesn't happen. That's an argument for another day, right? You understand that when we have inflation and the supply of money goes up and its value goes down, it's very common for the price of an Xbox to go up, for the pair of shoes to go up, for the price of milk to go up. The price of everything goes up. And so also should the price of wages. If you have to pay more to buy goods and buy services, it should cost more for your boss to buy you as a worker. But for whatever reason, wages often don't go up. They should, and that makes matters worse. So again, as we talk about how money floats through the economy, what happens is banks loan money to people. People spend that money, and when we spend, businesses make more goods, they hire more workers, and if there's more people working, then people spend more money, and they make more, and it goes up and up and up, and it just cycles over and over and over. And this all starts with the bank loaning money. They loan money to you, you spend it, they make more, they hire more. That means there's more families in the economy spending, and then they are buying more, and it goes up and up and up, and all happens with loaning. That's very good. That's awesome. The economy will grow, and it all starts when the banks or the Federal Reserve loans money out into the economy. The only problem is when they loan money out into the economy, this can cause inflation, and the value of the money goes down. But if they do this at an average or not at an out of control rate, they don't print too much money, the economy will grow and inflation will not be too bad. They just got to make sure that they're easy with it. Now, sometimes it gets out of control and they need to reel it back in and they need to calm the economy down. And so what the banks will do is loan out less money. You'll spend less money. And when you spend less, they make less, they hire less. And if there's less people working, you spend less, and the factories make less and they hire less, and it goes down and down and down. Now, this hurts the economy, shrinks the economy. That's not so good. So you're like, oh, well, why would the government ever do this? Why would the Federal Reserve stop loaning money? Well, the benefit of this is it will stop inflation. It will maintain the value of the dollar, or it'll even increase the value of the dollar. And we don't end up with $1 trillion bills. We don't end up with dudes throwing all their money in a wheelbarrow. And they can do this and prevent this by loaning less money into the economy, sucking some of the money out of the economy. So you kind of go with it every time. You don't want to print too much money. So again, how it works is the Federal Reserve prints the money, they loan the money to the banks, and the banks loan it out to businesses and people. Now you got the money out in the economy, and the economy grows. The Fed puts money into the economy, and they will grow. That is a lot like the gas pedal. This stimulates the economy. They loan money, the money goes out, the economy grows, people buy stuff, it creates jobs, and the economy grows. The brake pedal is, but if you're on the gas the entire time, you're going to wreck the car. And we've talked about that before. Wrecking the car is inflation, where your money becomes worthless. When you have hyperinflation, a little bit of inflation is okay. The brake pedal is when the government takes the money out of the economy, and that shrinks the economy. But the good thing that they can do is they can prevent inflation. So sometimes when the government is on the gas too much, which is happening today, right now, and you'll hear good job numbers and everyone's talking about how well the economy is doing. And the reason, or one of the reasons why our economy is so strong at the moment, is because the Fed is on the gas pedal. They are continuing to loan money out, and the economy is growing and people are spending, but the dread or the threat of inflation looms. The fact that at some point our money may actually be worth less. The purchasing power, although you are making money, you're buying less and less and less. You're getting less with the money that you have. Right now, they are on the gas. And so soon in the future, what will have to happen is the government is going to have to, mainly the Fed, and they're kind of hinting away at doing this right now. This is 2019 June if you're watching this video. So I don't know if I'm predicting the future. I'm not really predicting the future. They have to do this. This is not made up nonsense. They've got to get back on the brake a little bit, and they've got to take some of this money out of the economy. And that's going to stop inflation. and that will make sure that your money is worth something, but we're going to see the economy shrink. People are going to have to lose jobs in this process. There's going to have to be cuts. And you say, oh, that's terrible. We can't do that. But we've just explained, if they just stay on the gas pedal, we're going to get inflation that's out of control. We do not want that by any means. So the economy is going to stop growing. So if you're graduating high school right now as you're recording this video and we haven't hit out the break yet, good luck. Again, the Federal Reserve manages the amount of money in the economy. They control how much physical money there is in the economy. And you should understand now how the supply of that money goes up, goes down, and what happens to the value of that, and how that affects citizens, how that affects businesses, and how that is a huge part of America 100 years ago, and how that is a huge part of America today, and how that will be a huge part of America in the future. More money in the economy stimulates the economy. People spend more, businesses produce more, there are more jobs, the economy grows. But the downside is you run the risk of inflation. Less money in the economy will slow the economy down. People will spend less, businesses will produce less, they will hire less, the economy shrinks, but it will prevent inflation and it will maintain the value of our currency so that when I go to the store, I do not have to use the wheelbarrow full of stacks. Stacks and stacks and stacks. Stacks are good when it's worth something. Stacks are meaningless. Got stacks and stacks and stacks. Dude, those stacks don't mean anything when you're playing with funny money, when it's inflation. They got stacks over in Zimbabwe. They had stacks in Germany following the fall, I guess, of the Weimar Republic. They had those stacks, but they were worthless because the dollars were pretty much just pieces of paper. Two functions of the Fed. The way that they can mess with the supply of money in the economy is to raise or lower interest rates and to raise or lower the bank's reserve. Both of these are not very complex. Bank's reserve is pretty simple to understand. I'll explain that. Interest rates, we'll explain really quickly. Most of you probably already know what interest is. It's when you borrow money, but let's do it real quick. When you borrow money, real simply, a low interest rate is good. It is a percentage is what we're talking about. So if you borrow $100,000 from the bank at 1% interest, that is low. That is good. That means when you pay back your loan, because you borrowed this, you got to give it back at some point. Usually it takes years and years and years to pay it back. But after all those years of paying it back, basically they say, here's $100,000. You can spend it because you need something. You got to buy a house and you're going to pay the bank back over time. It's a loan. You pay back the $100,000. That's too many zeros. I'm sorry. What are you doing? So you pay back the $100,000 and another $10,000. So you pay back $110,000. So in the long run, you actually lost $10,000, but that's okay because that immediate money allowed you to buy a house when you needed it. That's the charge. That's the service. That's the charge you have to pay to borrow the money. That's not a bad deal. Let me show you. That's actually an amazing deal. Nowhere do you get a 1% interest rate. Nowhere. So low interest is good. Interest is the money that you pay on a loan. And there's a better definition of interest, but that's what we're going to use for right now. Borrowing at high interest then is bad. If I borrow $100,000 at 10% interest, I got to pay back, again, Mr. Dietrich, could you pay more attention when you're creating your graphics? $100,000, I have to pay that back plus $10,000. Mr. Dietrich, work on your graphics, please. Buddy, come on. So I end up giving back 100. This math is all messed up. I'm sorry. You paid back $101,000 a year. I hope someone caught that. If you caught that, congratulations. I made a mistake there. So 1% of 100,000. See, I messed up my numbers here. This is true. But anyway, so if you borrow $100,000, 1% interest is $1,000. So then you end up paying $101,000. If you have 10% on $100,000, 10% of $100,000 is $10,000. And so you pay back $101,000. and $10,000. So here you paid $1,000. Here you got to pay $10,000. Well, gee, you would rather pay back $1,000 than pay back $10,000. In both cases, you borrow $100,000. In this case, you borrow it and only have to pay an interest of $1,000. Here, you borrow it and you have to pay an interest of $10,000. So 110 versus 101. You like this. So low interest, good. Again, interest is basically the amount, basically a percentage, the amount that you owe when you buy a loan. It grows over time. I'm not going to go into that detail, but just know the basic example there. Low interest, good. When there's low interest, you're more likely to borrow. You will borrow more. Right here, you're like, yeah, give me that $100,000. I'm going to take it. Down here, like, nah, I'm not really interested. So if you're like this, a bunch of people are like this, and that means a lot of borrowing and a lot of money in the economy. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars and people spending. And when you spend, businesses are making more goods and the economy goes up and up and up. Down here, people say, nah. So there's less money in the economy, less spending, less producing goods then, jobs go down, the economy shrinks. Of course, if you're paying attention though, more money in the economy means the price is going to go down. And over here, less money in the economy actually means that money is worth a lot more. All right. You're losing your mind. I promise this is probably the last video that we will do on inflation in the Federal Reserve. So again, what happens is, remember, the Fed is the banker's bank. So when the banks get money, they borrow it from the Fed. And how it works, they get the money, remember, and then they get the money to you, and you buy stuff, and it's good. And it's all good. So here, low interest rates stimulate the economy. Here's how it works. The bank says, oh, you're only going to charge me, Fed, a low interest rate, just like you. You as a person will borrow money at a low interest rate. Well, so will the bank in regards to the Federal Reserve. You say, yeah, low interest rate, give me that money. And the banks say, yeah, low interest rate, give me that money. The banks borrow more money, and then the banks loan it out to you because it's a low interest rate and there's more borrowing. So everybody wants to get in on this. It's easier to borrow money because it's easier to pay back. They make money. You buy what you need. Businesses do well. Everything works out. It's awesome. There's more spending. The economy goes up. Run into a risk of inflation. Low interest rates stimulate the economy. This is that gas pedal on the brake. That would be gas pedal by the Fed. Lower the interest rates. This is where we are today. Low interest rates. Interest rates are very, very low. It is very cheap and easy to borrow money right now. Sometimes you got to slow down the economy because the inflation is out of control, and that would be by raising interest rates. And when the Fed raises interest rates, the banks say, nah, we Gucci. And guess what? When there's high interest rates, businesses and people are less likely to borrow as well. And if they're less likely to borrow money, that's less money. They spend less. The economy goes down, but it will stop inflation. All right, the bank's reserve. This one's really easy. So imagine a bank, and inside each bank there is a vault. And part of the rules of the Federal Reserve is they write a rule that says you've got to have so much money in your vault at any time, just in case everybody comes in and says, I want my money back. I want my money back. So there are rules that require how much money the bank has to keep in their vaults. This is called the bank's reserve. So one way that the Federal Reserve can stimulate the economy, get more money out there to the people, get it out to the businesses, throw it around, yeah, shake it up, is by saying, look, your reserve before was $35 million. Now you only have to keep $25 million. Take that extra 10 or that $10 million that you got sitting in there. You got $35 million in there, right? Well, tell you what, you only need to keep 25 in here. That other 10, loan it out. Loan it to businesses that are going to create jobs and spend. Loan it out to people who are going to buy homes, buy cars, buy speedboats, buy watches. That's $10 million pumped into the economy. That's going to create jobs. Also might create inflation. What if we raise the bank's reserve? We tell them, you know what? There's too much money out there. We're going to need you to pull it back in. New rule. $35 million, you got to keep $45 million in your vault. That sucks like a vacuum cleaner. Sucks $10 million out of the economy. That controls inflation, but it'll slow down the economy. Federal Reserve, gas pedal, brake. I think we got it. I think we finally understand it. So hopefully, like we did the Wilson stuff last time, good. Should be able to define inflation and exactly how we know exactly. This is not made up stuff. You have experienced this. You just did not have a name for it. You know this phenomenon. You just have never known what the definition of it was or understood specifically how this phenomenon happens. And I can go even more in depth to show you exactly why the prices go up or exactly why the value of the dollar goes down and show you detailed exactly what happens step by step by step. But it's easier just to say, look, the supply of money goes down, the price of it goes up. The supply of money goes up, the value of it goes down. It's much easier just to accept this. If you want to dive deep into an inflation hole, there's plenty of videos on the internet. There's plenty of books that you can study in economics in high school or in college to know exactly every step of the process and all the different forces involved, to know how inflation happens and how the Fed or the Federal Reserve can really affect the economy, which is really a powerful thing. This is the economy. When we talk about the economy, we're talking about the market. We're talking about buying and selling goods, producing goods. You as a consumer, you as a worker, you maybe as an investor, maybe you as the owner of a business, you as a college student that's going to spend money to learn something so then you can take that knowledge and make money off of it. That is the economy, all the buying and the selling and the trading. Well, above all of that, basically the god of the economy. I know that sounds like an exaggeration, but they basically are the gods. They are the puppet masters controlling. They're above the puppet, making the puppet dance. They control the economy. And the American economy is controlled by the Fed. Simply, it's controlled by the amount of money that comes in and out. That is a lot of power. And that goes back to what I did not talk about at the beginning of the video, which is some people are slightly concerned about the Fed having this ridiculous amount of power. This is maybe the most power that any organization has in America, which maybe even says in the world. And the fact that this organization, this institution known as the Federal Reserve, the banker's bank, it operates outside of the government. This thing is it is owned by private banks. It's its own separate enterprise. That is slightly scary.